Well, welcome. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And as always, I am so thrilled that you have chosen to spend your time here with us. And because of that, we know how important your time is. We always strive to make sure that we give some extra value to you, something that maybe you wouldn't have thought about before, a new perspective, and something that's going to enhance your ability to negotiate your best life. And today's no exception. We are talking today with Dr. Robert Ramirez, and we're going to be talking about negotiating financial freedom. Now, I know your ears just perked up at that. Certainly, I've got my pad and pen ready. So, welcome, Robert. It's great to have you here.
Cindy, thank you so much. You've got multiple podcasts and you provide so much value for your audience. So
Well,
it's
thank
great what
you.
you do. Keep it up.
I aim to, so thank you. And we're excited to have you here today. And your timing is perfect for me. I'm at that stage in life where I'm thinking, I've got to start thinking about making sure I'm lined up for my future here. And first, before we do that, though, for those of you who may not know him, Dr. Ramirez is an investing and business expert. He is an author, an educator, a speaker. He comes with years of chops here. So you're going to be getting some great advice, I have no doubt. So why don't you tell us, how
Thank you,
did you
Cindy.
come to be so passionate about this issue and helping out? I'd say you seem really driven to actually help
Wow.
others achieve their financial freedom.
Sure. Excellent question. Well, you remember the Great Recession of 2008, right?
I
Most of us
do.
do, right? So I was working as a director of information systems for a large company in Southern California,
Right.
and we were being bought out by another company. I thought they were in Arizona, so I just assumed they would move me and some of the key staff over to Arizona,
Yeah.
and I would continue on with the company. Well, that didn't happen. They took the technology, but they didn't take any of the employees.
Oh,
So I was without a job. Well,
yeah.
being 2008, everybody was trying to figure out how to downsize
Yeah.
employees. And then at the same time, I was renting some houses and they ran into problems as well. So my renters weren't paying me. And I've got 6 kids.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and they were teenagers and a couple of them going to college at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember being outside of the house with my wife and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm never going to depend on one paycheck again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
depend on one employer again. It just won't happen. I'm going to figure out how to make passive income, have various streams of income coming in. So since 2008, well, I became an entrepreneur and I started doing that myself with passive income. Then I became a teacher, professor in 2009,
Yeah.
and I was teaching. The average age of our students are about 26 to 35.
Yeah.
And I found out they didn't know much about financial
Yeah.
education. And
Yeah.
so I started teaching them and they loved it. And they loved the whole idea of multiple streams of income. So then I decided to just incorporate it more and more into my courses.
Yeah.
And then that gave me the idea for the book. Well, I'm teaching this to my students. Why don't I put it
Yeah.
in a book?
Yeah.
So
Oh, I
there you
love
go.
that on so many levels. It's 6 kids. Oh my gosh, what were you thinking? I bow down to you. We've got 3, and that was a handful. My goodness, I'm
Well,
impressed.
it's a blended family. I had
Yeah.
4. I'm the guilty one, and my
Yeah.
wife has 2. But
Yeah, that's amazing. Good for you, and you're making it work. But I
oh
love
yeah.
that you talked about kids because my kids are in the 20s, and they've been asking a lot lately. And we dropped the ball on that, to be honest, because they don't get taught it in school. And now they're at an age where they're supposed to be out there as independent adults, and they're struggling because they don't know. So I'm going to make sure they all listen to this episode. But before we dig into some of the sort of practical strategies and tips, I'd love to talk about mindset for a moment. I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say it, but I'm a big believer that our first and most important negotiation is the one with ourself, negotiating our mindset. And I find the idea of investing intimidating. I think a lot of people do. So, how can we negotiate our mindset to maximize our effectiveness to achieve that financial freedom?
I think you hit it on the nose. That's the most important thing. There's a couple words that I like. I like momentum. I like
Mm,
determination.
yeah,
And just like anything, investing is a skill set.
yeah,
And you can, with a little bit of education, a little bit of practice, you can learn that skill set. But you have to have that right mindset. You got
yeah,
to have that positive attitude because investing is tricky. There's going to be times when the market is just not going the way that you want it to go,
yeah,
and you won't be able to sleep at night.
yeah,
So you have to have that mindset to know that, you know what, whatever happens, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and I
yeah,
can I can fix this, and it's going to
yeah,
get better. And you just keep with that dedication, you just keep pursuing every day, and every day you learn more.
yeah,
Investing is a skill set that everybody can learn
yeah. I
with
love
a
that.
positive mindset.
And I like that persistence piece as well, right? And that positive the positive lens, I guess, right? That we're stop being so afraid of failing and we start to, I talk about failabrations that, let's take those failures, hold them up to the light and see what we can learn from them and celebrate them as a way to move forward. Now, you had mentioned when you were answering your question, and I love that you've created this incredible sort of new career and passion out of necessity, right? If you will. But
Yes.
you'd mentioned passive income, getting that passive income while you sleep, right? So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about what you mean by that and what are some strategies to generate that passive income.
Okay. So can I digress for one moment? Because we were
Absolutely.
talking right before we started, we were both talking about we're both looking to retire, sometime, right?
Yep.
And but it's interesting to note that 11,000 people, baby boomers mostly, we retire every day.
Wow.
And with these 11,000 people retiring every day, most of them are going to outlive their retirement
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're going to get Social Security, which is about a third of our retirement.
Yeah.
But when they set up Social Security in 1935, it was only people were dying at 66.
Yeah.
Well, now we're 86. That's
Yeah.
20 or 25 years later. And so with the good drugs, biological drugs, people are exercising,
Yeah.
dieting better, we're all living longer. So that's really a fear for most people.
Yeah.
And then for women, especially because women, bless their hearts, they're, with a family and
Yeah.
my wife was working full time, but she also, took responsibility for, cooking all the
Yeah.
meals
Yeah.
and maybe a lot of the, taking care of the kids. So
Yeah.
they've got a double responsibility. And then when my mom was sick and she was needing a caretaker, my wife, who was a nurse, she became the caretaker as well.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't working at the time, but they're not making money. So women have it, and we already know, as you know, women make about what 16%
Yeah.
less than men.
Yeah.
So for women, it's even tougher because they're going to outlive the men. They get paid less. They may have taken some years off for caregiving.
Yeah.
And so it becomes tougher even for women.
Yeah.
But for everybody, women, attorneys, everybody, it's important to have passive income
Yeah.
because what you want to do is you want to create passive income and keep that income coming in. You might retire from your job, but you still have passive income coming in.
And I'm going to stop you for one sec, Robert, because
Mhm,
I want you've said something that really struck a chord with me. And for our
mhm,
listeners,
mhm.
I want to challenge you for a moment to think about your current circumstances, because I think very few of us do that. And certainly as professionals, lawyers, I know in the legal community, so many people in my circle are working way beyond where they wanted to because they don't have pensions through work. They hadn't really thought about a long-term effective retirement. They're used to a certain standard of living and suddenly they find they can't support themselves. So I challenge our listeners there to really consider, after this episode is done, make a note to yourself to go through and see if you have the resources to actually support the longevity of life that you're hoping for. So
Right.
back to you on passive income.
Exactly. So everybody's got to make a personal assessment. Where are they? How long do they think they're going to live? What kind
Yeah,
of health are they in? How much money they have? Kind of figure out what they're doing. But everybody has the ability to make passive income. And you asked me what some of the strategies
yeah,
were. Well, we all know about 401ks and investing in the market, but your money also has to be diversified as well, because we know something will happen to your investments
yeah,
or whatnot. So I love real estate for one,
yeah,
and I've owned real estate for 20 some odd years,
yeah,
and I have renters that end up paying a good portion of the mortgage.
yeah,
That seems to work out for a lot of people. If you study a lot of the billionaires, they all own property and they have land and buildings and not. So because they want to diverse some of their income into these other opportunities that are safer, more
yeah,
consistent. So number one is real estate.
yeah,
But two, I would say that as people are trying to figure out, well, I just retired from work. What am I what am I going to do?
yeah,
And and you know, we're healthier now when we retire from work, and there's so many things you can do. One of the first things I tell people to do is do an assessment of themselves. What are their skills?
yeah,
What are their hobbies? Create a LinkedIn account and on LinkedIn say available to work and
yeah,
start listing your skills. and say that you want to work part-time, just something fun that you want to do.
Yeah.
And so many part-time jobs, and people love retired people because one, we've got a strong work ethic. We
Yeah.
work hard, we can work from home, and we take care of things.
Yeah.
What hobbies do you have that you can turn into generating income? Right? It
Yeah.
could be making candles and then
Yeah.
selling them over the internet. With the internet now, the power of that, we can reach people worldwide. You know, the distribution is fantastic. You
Yeah.
know, selling products on Amazon. I can go on and on with
Yeah.
25 ideas. I don't know if
Yeah.
you want me to continue, but
I love that you talked about the idea of diversity as well. I think we often miss that. And COVID, if it wasn't, it ought to have been a big wake up call for many of us who
it was for me.
industries that people had assumed were rock solid suddenly just gone, right? I mean, I had a friend who, their family owned, shopping malls, and that had been, and they were set, right? I mean, how it's so secure, and suddenly everything is shut down and that income is gone, but all your
Right,
costs are continuing. So, so important. Now,
right.
there's a lot of contradictory information out there about preparing for retirement, right? So, I'd love if you could share some of the top, I guess, financial myths, for want of a better term, about retirement.
Well, one myth is, people would say, okay, I'm retired, so I'm done making income, right? We've already broken that myth, right? You
Yeah.
you need you need to continue making income because
Yeah.
you don't know how long you're going to live.
Yeah.
20, you got to count on at least 25 years
Yeah.
of income coming in. You can't just be pulling money out of your
Yeah.
retirement. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then the Social Security, we have to look at that. When to take Social Security? Do you wait till you're 70 to capture that extra 24%? Do
Yeah.
you take it at your full retirement age? For most people, it's between 66 and 67. Or do you take it early at 65?
Yeah.
And every situation is a little bit different. Again, it's your health and your situation, and then your benefits, whether your spouse worked or not, and how are you going to manage that? Because your spouse will get my spouse will get my Social Security if I pass away
Yeah.
before she does.
Yeah.
So that's a big benefit. So you have to look at all those things.
Yeah.
In terms of myths, one myth is, well, we'll have to come back to that because
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank right now
No worries. No worries.
as I was
Well,
on a different topic.
why don't we jump to, and then you can just pop it in when it comes back to you, is what are some of your top tips to maximize retirement? If people were sort of taking notes here to say, okay, what are some of my top things I can do to maximize my retirement experience? What would some of those be?
Well, I think everybody has to get involved in their 401k at work, right?
Hmm.
If you're not investing in your 401k and getting the match, then you're losing money.
Yeah.
Then secondly on that is you can do better than your 401k, right? You can invest in ETF funds on your own. And once you learn how to invest, you can do better than the market,
Yeah.
right? For example, Warren Buffett, I think he's 93, and he
Okay.
said, he says, when I pass away, I want 95% or 92% of my money to go into the SPY index. The SPY index is 500 of the US's largest companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Teslas.
Yeah.
It's all in the SPY, so everybody compares to the SPY. Well, this year, the SPY is getting about 14%,
Yeah.
right? That's what we call an ETF, electronic traded fund. Well, everybody has the capability of investing in the SPY.
Huh.
In your 401k, you may not have that ability because it depends on what the funds that your work gave you. They're very diversified, very safe, but you won't make as much money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to learn the skill set and learn how to invest yourself. So back to Warren Buffett, he said, I want 95% to go into the SPY and the other 5% just to be in bonds.
Yeah.
That way, his wife is at least making the market returns based upon the 500 largest companies in the US.
Yeah.
And then another tip is to look at technology companies. If you look at all the technology companies, they're the ones with the most growth. And now it's companies with AI as well.
Yeah.
So if you look at the companies that have done well throughout the years, and the Amazons and the Googles and
Yeah.
Microsoft and Apple, technology, because once they build it once,
Yeah.
they can send it all on the platform. They can send it all across the world.
Yeah.
So if it's a product you're selling, it might do well, but anything that involves IT and the web
Yeah.
and technology. So look for those type of investments. You
Yeah.
know, what kind of platform are they running? Can they expand globally?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be a tip as well.
Yeah. And I like the idea of having a certain, I mean, depending on what income bracket you're in, like have your safe investments by all means, diversify, as you've said, was so important. And also, depending on your risk tolerance, have a few where you're willing to take risks, where you might get those really big returns, right? And it's something that you could afford to lose if you had to, and just sort of playing those numbers to not be afraid to try some creative things. And because as the world is changing and technology is moving so quickly, in some ways, we don't know, right? We don't know where it's
Well,
going to be.
I'll give you the perfect example. Bitcoin.
Yes.
Bitcoin, it runs on the blockchain, and there's Bitcoin, and then so January of this year, 11 ETFs were created that have Bitcoin. Now, these were created by the largest hedge funds in the world, BlackRock, Fidelity,
Yeah.
and to
Wow.
list a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So is it risky? Yes. But if you take 5% of your portfolio,
Yeah.
because invested in something risky like that, but the people who are invested in that, they're making not just 20%,
Yeah.
they're making 600% and
Yeah.
and a lot. So just a little bit can a risk can add a lot of value.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think, so we have those 11 ETFs that got added. Now it also got added for Ethereum about a month ago. And now ex-President Trump, he's talking about it. And I think Kamala Harris is open to the idea.
Yeah.
Other countries are starting to adopt it. So you're looking for it's technology
Yeah.
again, and you're looking for something new.
Yeah.
Because it's something new, it's going to be risky. But
Yeah.
the way I think of Bitcoin, and the blockchain, it's like the internet was way
Yeah.
back
That's true.
in 1990. Everybody thought, oh no, it's going to fail. It's good for nothing. And now you can't work without the internet.
Yeah.
Everybody has a website. Well,
Yeah.
that's the way the blockchain technology and Bitcoin is going to be as well. It's
Yeah.
just it's going to be integrated into financial technology, and
Yeah.
they're new asset classes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's too risky," but
Yeah.
you can manage it.
That's great advice. Don't be afraid of the new because the new
No,
will eventually become the old. And you're right. I mean, my gosh, when you think of the internet, the
yes,
way people talked about it. And years ago, I got some advice to invest in blockchain, that was going to be sort of the future, even more than
yes.
the individual type. And I didn't take it because I just found it kind of overwhelming, didn't understand it. And I really kick myself now. So
Well, it's gotten much easier with these ETFs that came out in
yeah,
January.
yeah,
Much easier. So
yeah,
you just buy an ETF fund.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well,
everybody you don't have to have a wallet now and know
yeah.
all this. You don't have to be a programmer. You
Yeah.
don't have to do any of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know. With massive amounts of computer power or whatever, I still know the mining, I never did get it. Now,
yeah.
what would you say, Robert, are some of the non-negotiables to being a good investor? Are there some sort of ground rules that you would say, make sure of this?
You don't want to just trust somebody else.
Yeah, yeah,
Because that will, that person, if you spend money and you hire a financial advisor, they're gonna work with you at the beginning and put you money in the right things. But stocks and investments, they change quickly.
yeah,
So the non-negotiable is you want to work with somebody that's going to be reevaluating your portfolio
yeah,
like almost every
yeah,
week or every month, right? Or at least every quarter. That's the non-negotiable. If you don't want to do it yourself and you want to hire somebody, don't let them just run it and just say, oh, it's going to come back
yeah,
because it may not. So you want somebody you
yeah,
want an active manager.
yeah,
Yes, you're going to have to pay them a small percentage,
yeah.
but it's small in comparison to what you could be making.
Yeah, and worth it compared to the alternative, which is either doing nothing or just holus bolus jumping in there with no sophistication whatsoever and totally botching it, right?
Yeah.
So now
And
what
another
yeah,
non-negotiable is, after you have 6 months of savings or 3 to 6 months of savings,
yeah,
don't have your money in the bank. You're only making 0.5%, maybe
yeah,
2% if it's an online bank. Your money is being depreciated away.
yeah,
So you really don't have a choice but to invest it in either a business
yeah,
or in the market
yeah,
or real estate. I mean, those are the three top choices.
yeah,
So that we have to stay ahead of inflation.
yeah. Oh God, that strikes a chord with me because I grew up in a low rental apartment complex. We didn't have much. Money was
Yeah.
always an issue. So I, from a young age, I would like save, save, save. And it's sadly much later than I would have liked to recognize, hey, my money is now worth not much more than it was. And with the cost of living increasing, it's actually worth less in some ways. Had I would have been way better to go invest that money in something and have seen that kind of growth. And on an unrelated, as you were saying that, I was thinking too, even like use it in more effective ways. Don't have it just sort of sitting in a bank getting a half a percent or whatever, much like your points cards. Oh my gosh, when I think about the points cards, my hotel points and flight points, and I saved and saved and saved them, and by the time I went to use them, like I could have had trips around the world on some of these and stays, and now they're worth almost nothing because they kept appreciating them. So
Yeah,
definitely
we've all
great,
done that. Or they
great.
changed the plan and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we've all been guilty of that.
Yep, they get bought out. I hear you. So what would you say people should do? Like if we're now saying, okay, I haven't really done much about planning for my retirement, what is sort of the first step of analyzing where you're at? What would you suggest people should be looking at to see if they're in a good shape or not?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I do with people is I act as a coach or their mentor.
Yep.
I'm not an investor for them. I just talk it out with them. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. And since I know a lot, I can point them in the right direction, point them to
Yeah.
the right advisors, but we walk through the personal assessment and their passive
Yeah.
income and how long they think they're going to live and Social Security and 401ks and tax situations and
Yeah.
healthcare costs and I just start walking all those things to get them to thinking, and then we start prioritizing those things.
Yeah.
They go off and do that. They come back to me with more questions, and we go from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. And so for our listeners, where should they start? Like you just named a bunch, so definitely be looking at, what income do you have once you stop working? What are your potential sources of income? How long do you expect you sort of are you hoping to be alive? What are all the various costs that you're going to have and be able to want to continue? What quality of life are you going to want to be able to maintain? So sit down and actually contemplate all of that stuff. Is that what you're suggesting,
Exactly.
Robert?
Exactly. A lot of people
Yeah.
say, "Well, I want to go to Italy, but I'm going to wait till I retire when I got more time and I can spend a few weeks there."
Yeah.
Well, they'll okay, but then when they stop working, that income stops coming
Yeah.
in, and then you're trying to plan an international trip, which is going to cost
Yes.
you $15,000,
Yeah.
and then you're thinking, I can't do that because
Yeah.
it's gonna pull money out of my
Yeah.
account, and you know they
Oh,
say that your retirement you plan on 80% of your income to keep coming in.
yeah.
It depends on your lifestyle. If you want to do those trips, then you better have more than
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Oh, and
because your
it's
money will be
heartbreaking.
depleting.
I've
Yeah.
seen so many people, you're right, spend an entire life putting it off, not doing it. And I'm like, I mean, I'm doing a lot of my bucket list stuff now. Last year we went
Yeah,
to
me too.
Antarctica. I went to the Amazon. I'm like, I'm doing it
That's
while I'm healthy and I'm able.
yep,
But I know people who spend a whole life waiting to do those things and then suddenly found themselves in a position where they're not and they're, you
right.
know, practically
Yeah.
working as Walmart greeters trying to make ends meet. It's tragic to see.
Oh,
So
that's sad.
yeah.
I my wife and I we've been to 22 countries because we love to
Nice.
travel.
Yeah,
Love to
same.
meet people from different countries.
Yeah,
It's funny when I meet people from other countries, we all want the same thing. We
yeah,
want education for our kids. We want
yeah,
healthcare. We want to be able to find jobs. And everybody wants the same thing, no matter what country.
yeah.
Why we fight, I don't know.
Oh, well, you're
That's a
speaking
whole
my
different
language.
topic.
That was one of the things for me that precipitated the art of feminine negotiation, which, as we were talking about before we jumped on, is not gender based. It's this idea about, my gosh, we resist what we don't know instead of embracing the things that we don't know, opening ourselves up to other perspectives and focusing on the things where there's commonalities, which is much more at its
Yes.
core than our differences. Almost always, it's just mind-boggling to me
Yes.
we set up this polarized, divisiveness. So now, what was one of the most surprising things that you discovered in researching or writing your books?
Oh, good question. The most surprising thing I would say I was surprised by how many people really lack financial education.
Yeah,
As I would talk to people,
yeah,
or if I talk to people about retirement, they don't consider all these different things, the taxes.
yeah,
I think they just think that I'll worry about it later,
yeah,
or I can't do anything about it. And that surprised me that
Yeah.
so many people were unprepared,
Yeah.
or they're afraid to invest because it's too scary, too hard. Well, so in my conversations, it's just, our mind, we're 6 inches. It's just we're building
Yeah.
skill sets. We got to
Yeah.
stack those skill sets, and everybody can learn anything if they
Yeah.
put their mind to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And I want to
people are
circle back
afraid.
to that
Yeah,
diversity piece that you were talking about as well, because I think so many people only think in terms of, sort of money for time, right? Like
yeah,
I'm gonna work at a job and get paid for what I do, which can be very short-sighted because if your health takes an adverse turn or that particular industry suddenly explodes because of some technological replacement or otherwise, you're left stuck. Whereas if you've got a diversified outlook and are actually diversifying the possible sources of income, then you're not going to be leaving yourself completely stuck. The chances of that are so much smaller when you do
yeah,
that. So yeah,
yeah. That's
yeah,
why I tell people to do it. Let's do a skills assessment. What are your skills?
yeah,
What when you were working, what did you do for 40 years?
yeah,
Okay, and what were you good at?
yeah,
Can we turn that into a business? Can you do consulting? There's so many,
yeah,
you can turn any hobby into a business. You can turn your work life skills into a business,
yeah, yeah,
whether part-time or full-time. But if you're retired, you want to do the things that you want to do,
yeah,
work when you want to,
yeah,
but you don't want to sit at home and
yeah,
just have popcorn
yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
well,
watch
once in a
TV.
while, but just
Yeah,
not all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I really like your focus on your passion, right? What is it you like to do? Because I think
Yeah,
so many of us go through life doing what's expected of us, following those traditional paths. And good grief, if there's ever a time, it's, as we're planning for our retirement, and even before, like looking at your skill sets and matching that up with things that you really love, that
exactly.
fires you up, right? What a different life experience that provides. So, yeah,
Yes.
do
That's why
something.
I like entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
because they find
yeah,
something where they can add value to it,
yeah,
and create it into a business, product or service, and they just figure it out. And as an
yeah,
entrepreneur, if they're opening up a business, they're doing the human resources, they're doing the
yeah,
marketing, they're doing the sales, they're doing the product distribution, they're doing everything
yeah,
because they've got that positive mindset, as you
yeah,
said. I'll figure it out. I'll do
yeah,
it. But a lot of people are afraid to take that first step.
yeah.
Now,
And tied to that, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I understand, like, I wanted to do it sooner, but with 6 kids, I needed that constant income coming in, so it
Yeah,
made it a little bit more difficult
yeah, I
just to
bet.
go on my own as an entrepreneur. So it took me a little bit longer than I would have liked, but
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so good, and it's funny, we doing what we like, I think, as entrepreneurs, the added advantage to that is, in my experience at least, I think most people who've stepped out to be an entrepreneur are gonna be more versatile because even if that doesn't
yep.
work or something goes
Mhm.
sideways, you're much more likely to try something else or diversify and have multiple balls up in the air at the same time, but at the
Mhm.
very least, you can sort of switch gears more quickly. So again, for our listener, I'd really encourage you, even if you've got a secure job, and you're, whether in the profession or beyond, have something else where you dabble at being an entrepreneur because I think it tests your chops and
Yep.
opens up your skill set to allow you to be a little bit more versatile and flexible.
And,
So,
and it creates momentum in your life.
yeah,
So not everything's going to work, but if something doesn't work, you
yeah,
learn from that experience and you do something different. But you
yeah,
got to keep moving. You got to
yeah,
keep moving forward. So that's where the mindset, momentum,
yeah, yeah.
dedication, it all comes
Yeah.
together.
Momentum,
Yeah.
right? When you said that right out of the gate in the interview, I love that word. That really struck a chord with me. I think that's a great, and you only get that momentum when you get into some form of movement, right? Sitting back, staying in the same old track, that same rut is going to, that rut's going to get so buried in the ground that trying to jump out of it is going to get harder and harder. So I think that's great advice. Well, Robert, thank you. This has gone super quickly, and I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest, we talked about mindset earlier. What is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? Doesn't, and I'm not talking just finances. This could be anything about, how you show up, how you feel, just an approach to life where something struck you as an aha moment.
Well, I'm going to go back to the way our conversation started with mindset,
Yeah.
right? With a positive mindset, you can learn everything.
Yeah.
via YouTube
Yeah.
or from education. You can learn. So don't be afraid to jump into anything. You
Yeah.
don't say, I don't know how to do this, because you can learn.
Yeah.
So there's a word that I like in Japanese, kaizen, small improvements,
Yeah.
and they just keep building on each other.
Yeah.
But I don't care whether you're a female and by yourself, or whether you've been working all your career like an attorney.
Yeah.
It's just going out there and moving forward,
Yeah.
taking the right step.
Nice, nice. And that Kaizen, as you said that, it struck me too, like those small improvements. I often talk about the confidence competence loop, right? And
Yes.
I visualize it as like an infinity, right? That sideways that, because it's like as you get a little outside your comfort zone and be willing to try something, it's like, oh, now you get a little bit of confidence, and that confidence allows you to try something else. And it's like this ever spiraling upward, beautiful infinity loop that allows you to grow and continue to grow and negotiate your best life in the process. So I
Well
love
said. Can we have that on tape? Because that's a
it.
good line. I like that.
So where can people learn more about you, Robert? You said you do some coaching. Where can we direct people?
Well, they can, first of all, I'm going to point them to my book, Achieving Financial Freedom. That's on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's available there. They can email me at I'm sorry, Ramirez, my last name, .bob@gmail.com.
Perfect.
I've been in technology so long that I don't have any numbers with my name. It's just my name,
Nice.
Ramirez.bob.
Yeah.
And they can reach me that way. Another good way is on LinkedIn, Dr. Robert Ramirez. And if I do a coaching session for somebody, the first 30 minutes are free, and then we go from there. If I can help
Fantastic.
them, we continue on. If not,
I
they've
love
learned something.
That's great. And for our listeners, make sure don't panic if you weren't able to catch that, or if you're in the car at the moment and we don't need you squealing over to the side of the road. We'll make sure to put that in our show notes as well. And I do suggest take advantage, follow up with Robert as well, and check out his book. And hopefully that will whet your appetite to start making sure that you create the circumstances to ensure your financial freedom. So thanks so much for joining us, Robert. This has been a really fun conversation and certainly enlightening. Really appreciate it.
Cindy, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
And for our listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I have no doubt you got some value. If you were listening, I know I was jotting down a few notes. You probably saw me looking away there for those who are seeing this on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and give the gift of sharing. Share this episode with other people in your life, because my goodness, financial freedom sounds great. And, as Dr. Ramirez said, that's something we can all achieve if we're willing to put ourselves out there to learn a little bit about how to do it. So make sure you share that secret sauce. And before we sign off today, just want to share some ways we can work together. If you're looking to uplevel your negotiation so you can negotiate your best life, I've got everything from online to my group to my signature VIP and one-on-one experiences available to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve. And if that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. It's about changing your mindset so you can negotiate your best life. And make sure to grab a copy of my book of the same name, The Art of Feminine Negotiation: How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom.